Here's a guy who has some questions for deists. Deists are folks who believe that there's a God, but that he doesn't do any miracles. He created the universe, but then he just left it alone. I'm not a deist myself, but let's see if I can answer these questions anyway.
Deism. It's maybe the most trending ideology.
What? Where? Since when? Is it trending on Twitter?
An ideology including faith in a God who created the universe in the beginning, but then left and stopped interfering. So, it's like he just pushed the start button and, well, that's it. Nothing else. No profits, no religion. It seems cool at first, so most of our young brothers and sisters can be deceived by it.
Yes, very cool. It sounds totally radical, dude. I'm sure all the kids love it.
But you'll see after this video that by asking really simple questions, you can see how senseless it is. Question number 1. Who is active right now? The doer is able. If there is an action, there should be someone who is doing that action.
Well, not if the action is taken by something that isn't a person. If the sun is warming me, that's an action the sun is taking, not a person.
And that someone should be able to do that action. When we look at the universe, we see countless instant works. Millions of animals and 350,000 new babies were born just today. 50 million cells of mine are being renewed every second, while I am not even aware of them. Our organs are doing unbelievable things that we don't even realize. Atoms in the air are transmitting thousands of sound waves at the same time without getting confused. Mindless atoms are working as if they are super intelligent.
No, they're not. They're just acting with the same mindless predictability they always do. The fact that these mindless actions build up to complex processes doesn't mean that they aren't reducible to very simple regularities.
We see the huge trees coming out of tiny seeds, gorgeous peacocks growing from simple eggs, spectacular human beings coming to life from drops of simple liquids.
They're not simple liquids. They contain complex strands of DNA.
And when we search for their makers, we see lifeless, mindless, powerless atoms.
Well, they're not powerless. They contain and transmit energy. The transmission or conversion of energy is the very definition of power, by the definition physicists use anyway.
Blind, deaf, and mindless nature events. I don't see anything with life, power, mind. I don't see anything who is able.
Well, no life or mind is necessary in order for an action to be taken. And if you don't see power, you probably don't know what to look for. The power, if we are to use the physicist's definition of power, in these events is very clearly measurable.
But we said that the doer is able. So since every second and every moment actions are taking place in the universe, they must have an active being with life, power, intelligence, will, and etc. who is making those actions.
Citation needed. Life, intelligence, and will are not at all necessary for actions to occur. Power probably is, but the power in these actions is clearly observable and measurable.
There are countless activities that are happening right now. So who is active right now? Because there must be an active creator.
Why? Why do you assume that nothing can happen unless some intelligent, deliberate will is making it happen? That's a totally unwarranted assumption. It's very much like another common theist assumption, which is that in order for anything to exist, some intelligent being must have deliberately caused it to exist. That's another non sequitur.
Therefore, it's impossible to think that our Creator left us. He needs to be controlling every action that's happening here every single moment.
Again, why? This idea even presents a theological problem. To say that God needs to be controlling everything at every single moment is to imply that he is not all-powerful. It implies that he was never capable of creating a set-it-and-forget-it universe. Are you saying that God doesn't have the power or intelligence to create such a universe? Sounds like a pretty blasphemous idea to me.
Question number 2. Why did God create this universe? If we would ask a deist if the God he believes in is wise, of course he would tell us that he is. Everything we look at shows us his wisdom. This is a world where we see activities full of hikmah, logic, sense, and benefits all around. For example, the fact that we have 5 fingers is biomechanically the most beneficial option.
Citation needed. Why would having 6 fingers not be better?
Having my eyes up here rather than somewhere else is biologically the most beneficial and logical.
But there are so many things about our bodies that don't seem at all beneficial or logical. The trachea being so close to the esophagus is a major example. If a product designer were trying to come up with a maximally beneficial design for an animal, they would never put the food intake pipe in a place that could so easily result in the air intake pipe being blocked.
The existence of the ozone layer is the most beneficial and logical. The food chain, wise movement of galaxies as if they have eyes to see.
How is the movement of galaxies wise? They don't move around randomly, if that's what you mean by wise. But that's because gravity bends space in such a way as to shape the paths they take. They don't need eyes or intelligence to fall into a gravity well.
Everywhere in this universe, from atoms to stars, there are traces of someone wise.
What would those traces be? I suspect maybe he means that things don't just happen chaotically. The idea that this is evidence of wisdom assumes that the default state of reality must be chaos and that any order must be deliberately imposed. There's no reason to believe this. This is an entirely baseless assumption. There's no reason that order cannot be the default state of reality.
Well, of course, no one could assume that the creator who gives his creation a mind to act wisely is not wise.
Well, you can infer it from the fact that a lack of wisdom is pretty common among people.
Think about it. A creator who takes care of our smallest needs, who gives thousands of different tasty foods just for my tongue's need. Is it possible that he won't take care of my greatest needs?
You say that like nobody ever dies from a lack of necessities. Lots of people fail to get the things they need. Lots of people are not taken care of.
Like the answers to my questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Is it possible that he will leave them unanswered by not sending prophets? Of course not.
But why wouldn't he just give Adam and Eve all the information they needed, if they existed? Why would he wait several thousand years to give the commandments to Moses, and a few thousand years after that to send Jesus, and another 570 years to send Muhammad? In Islam, the period before the revelation to Muhammad is called Jahiliyyah, which means time of ignorance. If God provides us with the wisdom we need, why would he allow any period of Jahiliyyah at all?
Would it make sense to display a colorful painting in a dark room? Of course not, because without light, there is no meaning of using color.
That would actually be a pretty interesting piece of postmodern art. I think displaying a colorful painting in a totally dark room could make a very interesting artistic statement.
If a really talented artist draws an awesome painting with thousands of colors to describe a meaning, it would be really sensible to show it in a place with no light. The fact that he made that painting is already proof that he is going to enlighten that place.
If the artist is going to put light in the room where the painting is being shown, why wouldn't he have the lights on from the beginning of the exhibition? Why would he wait a few thousand years for one light, then another few thousand years for another light? That's what God seems to be doing with the prophets. He's scattering them throughout time, allowing long periods of ignorance. What's the point of that?
Or would it make sense to write an incomprehensible book? Or opening an antique shop that's value will never be known. Think about it. If you had opened an antique shop, you would want a guide to be there, because if the values of the antiques are not known, there is no meaning in inviting any visitors or opening that shop in the first place. If people can't even differentiate the value between a work that's worth $1 million and a dollar worth work, why open that shop?
By that logic, why would anyone bother selling art at an auction? At an auction, the value is decided by the bidders, not any guide. Does that make auctions pointless? I don't think it does. Analogously, why not let people decide for themselves what's valuable in life? Why have a prophet dictate to them what everything and everyone's value and purpose is?
And that can only happen if there is a guide there. Just like that, this universe is an artwork made with thousands of colors. It's an exhibition full of meanings, so the one who always works with hikmah, I mean who always acts in the most reasonable and the most beneficial way, will, of course, teach why he created this universe, why there are humans in here, what their purposes are, and how important they are, by sending guides.
Well, in an antique or art shop, I'm not going to buy something if the guide says that thing's price is higher than what I'm willing to pay. Analogously, I'm not going to go along with the purpose a prophet dictates if I'm not interested in following that purpose.
Just like how light is needed for a painting, the light of prophets is needed for this universe to be understood. Just like how a guide is needed to understand the value of antiques, a guide for humanity is needed for this universe to be understood.
then again, why are the prophets spread out so much over time? Why is it that God gave his message to people who have a limited ability to spread it? There are still many parts of the world who have never heard the message of any Abrahamic prophet. If prophets are needed to understand the value and purpose of the universe, why are so many folks who live in remote locations and in uncontacted communities still in the dark? Instead of revealing his message to prophets and relying on their finite ability to spread a message, why not just reveal it to everyone directly? That way, God could overcome the geographical limitations of prophets.
Question number 3. What's going to happen after death? Some deists believe that there is an afterlife, and some of them believe that there isn't. But both of their answers are senseless because of their ideology. How? Well, if they say that there isn't an afterlife, why do hundreds of thousands of people come here, and why do they just go to nothingness afterward? If our end is nothingness, why is there existence?
Even if there is a God who puts people onto the planet to serve some purpose, what reason do we have to believe that the purpose can't be finite? Maybe we're put here to do whatever we do, and then God is done with us, and we stop existing. That may seem callous, but certainly not as callous as sending someone to hell because they had impure thoughts or some such thing.
Isn't it senseless to make a whole amazing building and then break it to atomic pieces? Well, how about building a whole city, then breaking it?
That's done all the time, and the reason is because they serve finite purposes.
Now, can you understand how senseless it is to create a whole universe just to send it to nothingness?
Not if it can serve its purpose in a finite amount of time.
No hikmah at all. And the creator, whose acts are full of hikmah, wouldn't just break his universe to nothingness. Someone who takes care of even the smallest needs of us.
He doesn't, though. If he did, nobody would ever starve.
Someone who creates so many tastes for our time will of course create an afterlife for us. And what if the Deist says that there will be an afterlife? Well, then we can ask him this question. How will God judge us for him? If there is no religion, if God didn't let people know about what he wants from them, wouldn't judging them be unjust? Because without laws, there cannot be judgments.
So does he not judge people who have never had access to the Quran? Do the uncontacted folks in the Amazon or the North Sentinelese not get judged, given that they've never seen or heard any Abrahamic text or prophet? And if not, wouldn't the most humane thing to do be to keep people from ever finding out about these things, so they never have to worry about being judged? To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.